The topic for the faith mysteries discussion this week is Judas in hell? Was he destined to be there? Did he have free will? What happened with him? That's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so a lot of people wonder if Judas is in hell. Of course, he was the one that betrayed Jesus, and Jesus died because of that. He had remorse over it, and so people wonder, well, did God give him a second chance before he hung himself? I want to go through and just tell you everything we know about Judas and just see where that leads. Okay, so for starters, he was called by Jesus as a disciple, so he's one of the 12 disciples. There were actually potentially two other disciples named Judas, and so the one that betrayed Jesus is always designated as Judas Iscariot. We'll talk about what Iscariot means in a little bit. We find out in the Gospels that he was the keeper of the money bag for Jesus and the disciples. So, as you probably have deduced if you've read the Gospels, Jesus did a lot of traveling. He did a lot of preaching, healed a lot of people, taught the disciples a lot. As they're moving from town to town, they're going to need money to feed themselves, to do the work that needs to be done. And Judas was the one who kept the money. Where did they get the money from? Well, it's very possible that people donated money to the cause because they believed in what Jesus was doing. So Judas kept that money and distributed it as needed. We know that Judas complained when Mary, presumably Mary Magdalene, poured oil on Jesus' feet and used her hair to clean his feet with the oil. The complaint was that the oil is very expensive and it could have been used to feed the poor, feed the hungry. And Jesus rebuked Judas and other disciples that may have had that point of view, and indicated that what she was doing was a good thing. One of the comments he made, which actually means quite a bit to me, you'll always have the poor, but you won't always have me. Is he saying the poor aren't important? Of course not. That was one of the biggest things he did while he was alive, is he tried to feed the hungry and take care of the poor and heal people with diseases. So he was very, very much behind showing love and compassion to the common person. We know that Judas approached the chief priests and asked what he could get in return to betraying Jesus. In other words, pointing out to him where he would be at a specific time so that he could be arrested. You might wonder, why didn't they just arrest Jesus? What would they need Judas to do that? Not really. They could have just arrested him anytime. They had their charges against him, but it made it easier when it was one of his own that betrayed them. And doing it at night, the way it happened, Jesus had a following of people. So by doing it at night, you have less exposure. So on that night, which was a Thursday night, Jesus died on Friday, Good Friday, Judas brought a cadre of soldiers authorized by the chief priests. He kisses Jesus and indicates to these soldiers that's the one, that's Jesus. He's the one to be arrested. Why the kiss? Honestly, could have been just a normal, everyday greeting, a friendly greeting that Judas had for Jesus. But really, he was lying when he did that, because it was no friendly greeting at all. It was the way to point out to the soldiers who the one was to be arrested. When Jesus gets arrested and when Judas sees what's going to happen to Jesus, that he's going to be taken in questioned and accused and probably killed for what's happened. He has a lot of regret. He takes the 30 pieces of silver that were given to him as payment for betraying Jesus, and he throws it in the temple and runs off. And although he has regret, rather than seeking forgiveness directly from Jesus, he goes and hangs himself. So what becomes of Judas then? Was there an opportunity for him to be forgiven? Was there a chance that God looked at him and had mercy on him? We know that same night when Judas betrayed him, earlier in the evening, this could have been that Thursday or maybe even the night before, there's a prayer that Jesus makes to the Father. It's called the high priestly prayer. And he says to him that he has kept all 12 safe except one, who he describes as the one doomed to destruction so the scripture might be fulfilled. Now that's very interesting because it seems like, you get into things like fate and destiny. Was Judas destined to be the one that betrayed Jesus? It gets a little murky, a little mysterious there. The gospel writer Mark says it would have been better if Judas had never been born. So, and when they replaced Judas with the apostle Matthias, Peter said that Judas fell from grace so that he might go to his own place. So all of these distinctions here about Judas seem to indicate, doomed to destruction, better that he had never been born, that he would go to his own place. It doesn't say he went to hell, but it suggests that he did. And then some people wonder, well, is that fair? Did God orchestrate all this so that Judas would be the one that would betray Jesus? And the ironic thing is, by having Jesus betrayed and arrested and questioned and tortured and put to death and then rise again on the third day, all of us have, salvation. So is it all being done on the back of Judas? Well, this gets into the area of free will and predestination, which I already have, actually have videos on both of those, don't I? And this is very mysterious stuff. Certainly, my belief is that Judas had free will, and then certainly also God the Father has foreknowledge of everything that we're going to do, and he designed this dramatic series of events to take place. Was Judas a puppet? No. Did God know it would happen? Yes. We know that Judas was tempted by Satan because there's passages that say that Satan entered into him right before he went to betray Jesus, right before he went to meet with the chief priests. So it's one of those situations that's very hard to reconcile because we have finite minds. But I do believe that Judas had free will, and I also believe that God is sovereign and knew everything that was going to happen and knew that this unfolding drama would occur. So that's my conclusion. Yes, he probably is in hell, but he did so of his own volition. It's interesting kind of looking back as to what motivated Judas. How did he get off on the wrong track? Well, we do know that he was keeper of the money, and he complained when that expensive oil was used, in his mind, inappropriately. But we also find out in that passage that he stole from that money and used it, and was a thief and used it for his own purposes. We also know that he got the 30 pieces of silver as payment for betraying Jesus. And there's also another issue, and this is less factual. We don't know for a fact that this is true, but his full name, Judas Iscariot, The word Iscariot could have indicated the town that he came from, but it also literally means dagger bearer. So there are some theologians that believe that he could have been one of the zealots of that time. Simon, there's one of the apostles, Simon the Zealot. We know that he was in that group, and these were Jews that felt that there would come a time when a Messiah would come, not the heavenly king that Jesus was, but more of an earthly warrior is what they wanted, to overthrow Rome and reinstate Israel as a nation. And it's possible that Judas is one of those people, and that things were not going the way he expected them to, and that he betrayed Jesus for those reasons. We don't know that, but that's a third possibility. So if you put it all together, Judas, tempted by Satan, tempted by money, possibly tempted by a world vision that involved glory and honor and being in power. Those could have been the things that motivated him. However you look at it, it's a sad story. Hope you learned something from this. Love you all. We'll see you next week.